The alien girl was sentenced to 300 lashes, but human boy stood up. "Punish me." The drums began at noon, low and patient, like a heart that refused to calm. In the dust-lit square of Outpost Kestron, banners snapped in the dry wind, and the settlers, human and Kestri alike, drew close to the circle of stone. Above them, the desal towers clattered as brine whipped through copper throats, crying out like gulls. Liora stood at the center, wrists bound in braided kelp cord. Her pale blue skin dappled with shadows from the lattice of sunsails overhead. A line of silver scales traced her cheekbones, glittering whenever she turned her face toward the light. "For theft of ration water during a heat curfew," intoned Magistrate Varel. "The sentence is 300 lashes beneath the square's witness." The crowd stirred, uneasy, eager, ashamed. It all sounded the same when wrapped in silence. Jonas was in the third ring, grease under his nails and heat salt sticking his shirt to his back. He was a mechanic's apprentice, a human among many, one pair of lungs in a world that always felt an inch too thin. He had met Liora first in the rag markets, crouched beside a broken sky cart. She'd fixed it by listening, ear pressed to the axle as if it had a secret to confess, then smiled when it purred. Later he learned she mended more than machines. She braided broken nets for widows. She ferried lost hatchlings across hot stone in the fold of her shawl. He knew that and held it like a stubborn spark as the guards brought the lash frame forward. 300, Varel repeated, not looking at her. "So the law remembers itself." Liora didn't plead. She only lifted her chin, throat working. On the steps of the cistern house, her mother clutched a woven bag and gripped the railing as if the metal could keep her standing. Jonas stepped forward before he could think. The ringed faces swung toward him. "Magistrate," he called, voice scraping. "Invoke Custodian's claim." A ripple passed through the Kestri elders, the rustle of sand against stone. It was old treaty language, almost ceremonial, almost forgotten. Varel's gaze flicked to the human boy who wasn't a boy. Full-grown, shoulders squared, but the word clung because it was useful to those who used it. "You presume to know our law?" Varel asked. "I know mercy fits in all languages," Jonas said, swallowing. "Let me take her punishment." "All of it." Liora's head snapped toward him. No, it was barely sound. The executioner, a broad Kestri woman with tattoos like river maps, lowered her whip. The crowd leaned forward as if wind pushed them. Scribe Toulon, keeper of treaties, fussed with a stack of film-thin codex sheets. "There is a clause," he murmured, eyes darting. "Under the pact of shared soil, a non-Kestri may assume an atonement burden if blood-bonded." "We aren't bonded," Jonas said, heart hammering. Liora's mother whispered, voice cutting the heat. "There is a bond older than cords, the vow of standing with." Her gaze found Jonas and did not waver. "Will you swear it?" "I will," Jonas said, and meant it. They brought the atonement cord from the temple store, thin as hair, glittering like frost. Toulon looped it around Jonas's wrist and Liora's, the thread tightening until it hummed softly between them. "Pain transfers," the scribe explained, "not the crime. The lesson remains with the offender." "Then the lesson survives," Jonas said, "and the body survives too." "Begin," Varel ordered, but his voice had lost something. Certainty, perhaps. The first lash fell like a lightning fork across a clouded sky. Jonas took it. The world blazed white, then narrowed to a point that pulsed. He counted 1, not out loud, not with bravado, but to give shape to the hurt so it could be held. Liora flinched as the cord sang, a ghost of pain brushing her nerves. Her eyes flooded. "Stop, please," she rasped, but the law ground forward with each drumbeat. 3, 5, in. By 16, Jonas's breath came like a bellows dragged through water. By 22, the crowd had stopped murmuring. It wasn't spectacle anymore. It was a mirror too clean to ignore. The executioner's hands trembled. She had never seen anyone stand so willingly in the path of the whip. Not for kin, not for coin. At 30, a voice cracked from the back. It was for my hatchlings. A woman stumbled forward, gaunt, clutching two small kestrel children. Their lips were cracked like old porcelain. They were dying. Liora took water for them when the ration office turned me away. Another voice, another. She fixed our pump for free. She traded her own share for elders. The admissions wove together, a net slung across the square. The executioner lowered the whip. Magistrate, she said, soft but firm. I uphold the law to teach. Today I've learned enough. Varel stared at Jonas, who swayed but stood, and at Liora, whose shoulders shook with silent sobs. The banners snapped again, impatient. The world waited. Record this, Varel said at last, voice rough. By testimony and by the custodian's claim, the remaining lashes are commuted to service days. 300 of them, performed by the guilty and by those who would share her guilt. The atonement shall be repair, pipes, pumps, and policy. Relief broke over the square like rain that had forgotten itself for a century and suddenly remembered. Hands reached for Jonas as he sagged. Kestrel hands, human hands, carrying him to the shade of the cistern steps. Liora knelt, her bound wrists still linked to his by the humming cord. Why? She whispered, pressing a cloth cool, blessedly damp, against the angry welts that crossed his back like thunderlines. He opened one eye, found her, and managed a scrape of a smile. Because you listened to a broken machine until it healed. Seemed fair someone listened to you. They worked. The sentence became a calendar that filled with doing. Liora and Jonas crawled into the belly of the Outpost's waterworks, shoulders brushing in narrow ducts, fingers blackened with mineral grime. Children carried meals to them and learned the names of valves. The ration office tore down its glass barrier and put up benches. The law was amended. No more lashings for need-driven theft. In its place, a review council staffed by both peoples, and a surplus cistern fed by the desal tower's nighttime overrun. When the atonement cord was finally unwound, it left a faint silver line around two wrists. Jonas rubbed his absent band and looked out over a square where the drums had grown quiet, replaced by the chatter of a fountain that ran even in late afternoon. Liora stood beside him, the scales along her cheek bright as the water's skin. Your scars will ache when the wind shifts, she said, voice gentle with knowledge. Then I'll know a storm is coming, he said. Useful that. She turned to him fully. We did not erase pain, human. We rerouted it. Into mercy, Jonas said, and the fountain answered with its patient applause. The square, once a stage for punishment, had become a place where people lingered, where hands found other hands, where law and compassion learned the cadence of the same drum. And in that steady rhythm, two changed souls stood together, unbound, and faced whatever heat tomorrow carried with it.